Given that only a small percentage of the ocean has been well explored and that the ocean covers more than 70% of our planet's surface, there's a lot of undersea territory left for us to explore. And seafloor mapping is the first step. A primary tool used to map the seafloor from a ship is sonar, which stands for sound navigation and ranging. The full name gives you a clue as to how sonar works. Sonar systems send sound waves from the bottom of the ship to the seafloor, and more recently, even a remotely operated vehicle or an autonomous underwater vehicle. These sound waves bounce off the seafloor and back to the vessel or to the vehicle. And scientists use the time it takes for the sound to travel to the seafloor and back to determine the depth of the water or the distance to the seafloor. And this information is used to generate colorful, high-resolution bathymetric maps. And these maps help us make informed decisions about how and where we're going to explore and do further detailed exploration. Hi, everyone. Welcome to NOAA Ocean Exploration and our mini-series of educator professional development. We're really excited to bring you these offerings in cooperation with many education partners across the country. And as you know, tonight our topic is deep sea mapping. I'm Susan Haynes with NOAA Ocean Exploration, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you all joining us today. And for today's program, we have participants joining us through registration from multiple partners down the East Coast and across our country in Central and Mountain Time. So welcome to all of you, and we'd like to share a quick pre-recorded hello from all of our partner coordinators who are participating tonight. Can we pull up that video?
Hi, I'm Brian Benham, Director of Education at Loveland Living Planet Aquarium in Draper, Utah. Our follow-up session will be June 15th at 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Hope to see you there. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Emily. I work at the National Aquarium located in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm looking forward to partnering with NOAA again for the seafloor mapping workshop. My follow-up event will take place on May 25th at 4:30 Eastern Time. See you there.
Greetings from Great Lakes Aquarium in Duluth, Minnesota. My name is Alexis Berkey, Director of Learning and Engagement. You can join our follow-up session on June 19th at 5 p.m.
Hey y'all, my name is Courtney. I'm an educator with the South Carolina Aquarium down in Charleston, and I am so excited to be learning more about seafloor mapping with y'all. I can't wait to discuss it with my South Carolina friends on June 2nd at 4 p.m. Thanks, bye.
Good morning, I'm Rosanna Gossett with the Texas State Aquarium. Don't forget to join us on June 2nd for our follow-up event. Your link has been sent in a calendar invitation. If you have questions, please email me at rgossett@txstateaq.org. Have a wonderful PD.
Hi, my name is Tina Miller-Way. I'm the facilitator for the Dauphin Islands Sea Lab. We're looking forward to seeing some of you on our June 10th deep dive follow-up.
Hi, I'm Deborah from the Albuquerque Biopark in New Mexico. Thanks for joining us, and I hope to see you on June 2nd at 3:30 Mountain Time for our follow-up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle de Jesus, STEM coordinator of the Ecoexploratorio Museo de Ciencias de Puerto Rico. On Thursday, May 18th and June 1st, together with NOAA, we will be hosting a seafloor mapping workshop at 5:30 p.m. Hope you join us.
Hello, I'm Teresa Greeley from USF in St. Petersburg, Florida. Welcome, Florida teachers, and I look forward to seeing you at the follow-up May 25th from 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock p.m. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Howard Forbes Jr., the St. Thomas Coordinator for the Virgin Islands Marine Advisory Service on the beautiful island of St. Thomas.
So as you can see, we've got quite a few partners across the country participating with us tonight, which means we have many of you online tonight. I believe we have well over 100 people, maybe 140 people or so online tonight. So we're looking forward to working with all of you, and we're incredibly grateful for the partnership of all of these folks across the country. I also want to note that our programming is made possible through a fantastic partnership with the University of Rhode Island's Inner Space Center and supported by the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. So to get us started tonight, I know you all were given a lot of information before this workshop this evening, and one of those things was a Mentimeter to fill out a word cloud. And I understand that you've all been quite active with that word cloud to tell us what you thought of the Deep Sea Dialogues mapping video and seafloor mapping in general. So we're going to pull that word cloud up on the screen and just take a quick look. Wow, and it's huge, and it's filled with so many wonderful words. And a few of the things that I've seen a couple of times are amazing. And yes, indeed, seafloor mapping and deep sea exploration is amazing. And it is colorful, just like this word cloud. The false color maps that we create with seafloor mapping are as colorful and dynamic as this egg-shaped word cloud. I also see the word evolving, which is definitely true. Our technologies for mapping the seafloor and exploring the ocean are advancing so quickly, it's hard to keep up with what's going on. And additionally, I saw intimidating and I saw scary. And I think some of that may have to do with the activity that we're sharing with you all this evening. And I know it's a lot of technology and it's new to a lot of people and it has a lot of pieces, but please don't be intimidated. We're walking through this together. Please don't be scared. We're here as a resource for you. So we're looking forward to your feedback with everything that we're doing tonight. So thanks very much for filling out the word cloud. It really gives us a sense of what you're all feeling and how excited you are about what we're doing. So we've got a lot in store for you tonight to share with you how we do, what we do, and specifically focused on seafloor mapping. The goal of the entire series is to introduce you all to experts in different ocean science disciplines and highlight their areas of expertise. Also to provide you educational resources on those specific topics, and then to give you the opportunity for professional connections and conversations with your colleagues at a more regional level through your follow-ups. And this is the third of several topics that we plan to present in this mini-series. Some of you may have participated in the underwater robots events that we had last fall, and some of you may have participated in the hydrothermal vents activities that we did this past winter. We're also planning some new topics for the fall, next winter, and next spring. So look for more opportunities as the year progresses. A bit of a brief plan of what we plan for tonight for our 90 minutes. Pretty soon we will walk into a question and answer with our visiting mapping expert from NOAA Ocean Exploration. And then we will go through an overview of the seafloor mapping activity that we gave you all in your email yesterday or day before yesterday. And I will ask you all to be sure to either pull up the hot link for it or have it printed out. I know you had some challenges in accessing the Google folder, and we're sorry for that, but we can figure that out later. So I think that Alexandra is providing you with a hot link to directly where this activity is in the website. And you can just follow along and don't worry too much about having more information than just having that document in front of you. We're also going to walk you through how to access a number of resource materials that are associated with seafloor mapping from a couple of different organizations, and then remind you of your follow-up event dates and times. So all that said, just very quickly, a little bit about NOAA Ocean Exploration and what we do and why we do it. We are a federal office, and we were established in 2001 with the mission to explore the ocean for national and also for international benefit, with the understanding that our global future depends on us understanding the ocean. And along with federally funded exploration opportunities on a number of different NOAA vessels, Ocean Exploration operates the NOAA ship Okeanos Explorer that you see here, which is our only federal ship dedicated to ocean exploration. And we at NOAA Ocean Exploration and many of our partners, like Ocean Exploration Trust, who operates the exploration vessel, the Nautilus, and Schmidt Ocean Institute, who operates the research vessel Falkor, we all target areas that no one's ever been to before. And many, many times and in many respects, we really have no idea what we might find. So we map the seafloor, we study water chemistry, we explore the organisms that live throughout the open and the deep ocean. And we often find things that are completely new to science. And in relationship to seafloor mapping, I wanted to share a couple of examples of some recent findings with you. As you've seen, the difference between older satellite altimetry mapping and what we're able to do with multi-beam sonar is quite different. And we found seamounts that reach tens to hundreds of meters higher than we originally thought. And here in this clip, one of our mapping expedition coordinators describes his experience while in the Pacific Ocean.
The program here has essentially taken an area which we knew, I think it's safe to say, barely anything about, and we mapped all these totally unknown seamounts. One of the striking things that we found were that these seamounts look very different than what the altimetry and the satellite data suggested. This one was about 1 kilometer higher than we expected it to be.
Almost 1 kilometer higher than we expected it to be. Holy cow, that's a lot. I also want to share with you this image that is available through some of our education materials. This image is of a seamount that was explored also in the Pacific Ocean. And if you look at the red lines and the yellow lines in the center there, the yellow line marks what historic satellite altimetry told us, and the red line marks what we learned through multi-beam sonar. So that's 1,700 meters higher than we thought. So you can imagine the implications for submarine safety and generally for understanding of habitats. When you look at all the nooks and crannies that are in those seamounts that we now know, we know how much life is in there. And I also wanted to share with you another finding. A few years ago, about 100 miles off the coast of Georgia and Florida, we mapped some really unusual unidentified features or mounds on the seafloor. So take a quick look at this clip.
We're 160 miles from the east coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. We are diving on 2 large mounds that were recently discovered in the past 2 weeks. No one has ever dove here before. Today we've discovered 2 totally unknown to science before Lophelia reefs.
So we weren't sure what we were looking at when we saw those mounds when we mapped them. And when we took a closer look with the remotely operated vehicle, we determined that these mounds stretched for miles and miles, and that for thousands of years, corals have been growing and dying in this region at a depth of about 600 to 800 meters. And this incredible complex of thousands and thousands of coral mounds led us to deem it million mounds ecosystem. It's an incredibly rich habitat full of life, and we didn't even know it was there. And lastly, one other discovery I wanted to share with you. In 2017, in the Pacific Ocean also, we were diving with the remotely operated vehicle on a target that, from the map, we thought was a shipwreck. But here's what we found.
It's something interesting up ahead. It might be modern, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah. They look like freezers or refrigerators.
Yeah.
Well, should we zoom in on this panel here?
I don't think InCycle's going to be working on it.
So, problem solving for if your washer doesn't work.
I'd like to return this to the manufacturer and ask about the warranty.
It's a container.
It's a shipping container, yeah.
Let's make sure we get a good capture of the numbers on this. We should be able to trace these containers.
Aren't like a
So several of us were watching this live as it was happening and got some good giggles out of the science team's jokes in relationship to this. But this was a 40-foot freight shipping container, and one corner had been ripped open, and the cargo was washing machines, dryers, freezers, dishwashers, and refrigerators. And in this particular instance, our remotely operated vehicle pilot's mom was watching the live feed, And having once owned a laundromat, she was able to look up the serial number of some of the washing machines and give us the date of when they were built, which was February 1993. And that gives us a little bit of insight into how long those different washing machines, et cetera, had been there. So very interesting, very unusual finds sometimes. And we're always learning something new when we're exploring the deep sea. So you can check out more of all of that on our website at oceanexplorer.noaa.gov. And as you all can tell from the examples I just shared, and as you saw in the Seafloor Mapping Deep Sea Dialogues video, seafloor mapping is really much more exciting than it might sound at first consideration. And to help orient you to the topic and to all that we have to offer, we've shared with you a number of different helpful resource pieces and information pieces for your classroom, including activities, background information sheets, presentations, images and videos, and so much more. But we'll talk a bit more about all of those things a little bit later. And here's a couple of screen grabs of some of the things that we'll share with you later. So all of that said, I really hope you all arrived with some good questions for our guest mapping expert tonight, Mimi Lobecker, and our interviewer will be Alexandra Puritz, and I'm going to turn it over to her now.
Thank you, Susan. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex, and I am a member of the NOAA Ocean Exploration Education Team. I am very excited to be speaking with Mimi today. Mimi is the team lead of mapping expedition coordinators at the University of New Hampshire Center for Ocean and Coastal Mapping, as well as an expedition coordinator for NOAA Ocean Exploration mapping cruises. She has been with NOAA Ocean Exploration since 2009. Mimi received her undergraduate degree in environmental studies from George Washington University and her graduate degree in marine affairs from the University of Rhode Island. Prior to joining NOAA Ocean Exploration, Mimi conducted commercial seafloor mapping for offshore resource planning and then worked on nautical charting updates for NOAA. Mimi, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. I'm excited for this.
Awesome. So at this point, I would like to ask all of our participants to please start sharing some questions that you might want to ask Mimi in the chat. You'll see a chat on the right side of the YouTube page. But first, I'm just going to ask a few questions that I had in mind. So Mimi, my first question for you is, what inspired you at an early age to pursue a career in marine science?
So I love this question. I grew up in Newport, Rhode Island, right by the ocean, grew up going to the beach. It was always part of my everyday life. I grew up on an island. I didn't even realize it was an island because there was a bridge. I just thought it was a bridge. But my childhood was largely based at the beach. And then my father's career was in oceanography. In the early years of our family, he was going to sea while my mom had 3 kids at home, taking care of all of us so my dad could go explore and adventure in the offshore world. And so at first, he worked for companies like Raytheon and Science Applications International, doing work for the EPA and for BOEM, doing investigations for site remediations and things like that, using all different kinds of technology to study the ocean and study the seafloor. And then eventually, there's my dad on the left there, he's very small. Eventually, he, rather than going to sea, started to get into the design and sales of marine technology, which evolved into working with sonar. He did a lot of top secret work with Raytheon, with sonars, and then eventually he actually sold remotely operated vehicles for a business on Cape Cod. So it's kind of in my blood. I did not get there right away. I was very interested in the environment and science, but I did not land in oceanography until after college, but decided it was the right thing for me.
Thanks. That's really interesting. It sounds like this was, yes, marine science and sonar was an integral part of your growing up.
Yeah, it was always there. I just didn't know it all the time. Yeah.
Well, I definitely am curious to hear a little bit more later about some advice you might have for young people that want to get into that field. But my next question for you is, how would you explain multi-beam sonar to middle and high school students?
Okay, I've been thinking a lot about this because it's hard to try to get this out in a brief couple of sentences, especially to an audience where you want to make sure it's discernible and understandable. So we have a multi-beam sonar mounted on the hull of the ship. It's in the shape of a T. So the top part is the transmit array. So that's the part that makes sound. And then the bottom part, and it's actually mounted like this. The second part of the array, or the sonar array, is the listening part, the receiver array. So the first thing that happens is the transmit array sends out a pulse of sound into the water in the shape of a fan. So you see that a lot in sonar graphics. So we know in the software exactly when we send our sound out, and we know exactly when our sound comes back to that listening array, which is basically, it was described to me once as like a series of little ears, which helps you think about it. It's a long array. They're each of those two pieces for us, because we have a big deep water system, is about 15 feet long. And each is divided up into like little transmitters or little ears. So when the sound comes back to the ears, we know how long it took for that sound to leave the ship, go down, hit the seafloor, and then come back. So that we track that amount of time, and we know that sound travels through seawater at approximately 1,500 meters per second. So, for example, if the sound left the ship, hit the seafloor, and came back exactly 1 second later, we know that that sound traveled 1,500 meters because it's 1,500 meters per second. So we divide that by 2, and so that means the depth or the distance that it traveled, which we translate into depth, was 750 meters. And so that repeated over and over and over again throughout that beam, that sonar fan, we used to build a map of the seafloor. And we designed surveys to run that sonar in, which are kind of back and forth, like mowing your lawn, except it's the ship that's driving back and forth. And by doing that in a very organized way, we essentially paint the seafloor with sound, and then we organize that all into maps. I'm using very highly specialized software, which I believe you guys, yeah, that's a really good example right there, which I think you guys have some experience with, Inflator Mouse. So that's the explanation. I hope that works. And I can answer any follow-up questions on that later, because it's a lot to try to get out. Short.
Great.
Quickly.
Thank you. Yeah, it's such an interesting technology, and it's really critical to the ocean exploration work that we do. So at this point, I would love to open up to audience questions. Do we have any participant questions we could pull up for Mimi? So from Christia, we have a question. When you go out to do the mapping expeditions, what amount of time or area is typically targeted for mapping?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for us, for Okeanos Explorer work, our mapping cruises, our 24-hour per day mapping cruises are between 2 and 3.5 weeks long, I would say. We do work 24 hours a day so that we're maximizing our use of ship time, and we do map as soon as we leave port. We basically turn the sonar on as soon as we hit the outermost buoy in the harbor, so that we're always collecting data, always exploring, and then we go out for our 2 to 3 weeks, map the whole time, and then come back in and map during our transit in. And the amount of seafloor that we map actually depends on the water depth. So if you imagine the multi-beam that's mounted on the hull of the ship, and you have a beam fan that's like this. I'm gonna try to do this on my screen. This might not work. If you're very close to the seafloor, your triangle, so your swath of data, your beam fan, is going to be smaller. It's going to be narrower than if you're way up high and your water's super deep and you get a nice wide swath. So if we're in very deep water, for example, in the Pacific, where the water depths are 4,000 to 6,000 meters, during a 3-week cruise, we can map 30 to 40,000 square kilometers in a cruise. But in a 3-week cruise, you know, on the Atlantic side where things are a little shallower, we'll get probably half that. So we can predict what we think we'll get, and then at the end of the cruise, we furiously calculate our statistics to see how well we did. And we have a saying in mapping, miles equals smiles. The more distance we cover, the more seafloor we map, and with the global ocean rate of seafloor mapped still hovering somewhere between 15 and 20%, we just feel like we have to capitalize on every hour at sea, so we're always mapping.
So only about 15 to 20% of the entire seafloor has been mapped.
Yes, so there are those wonderful but relatively low resolution maps of the seafloor from satellite altimetry, which is what you would see in Google Earth background, very frequently used, or in the back of any kind of geographic information system software. That is 100% mapped, but the high-res stuff with sonar, somewhere between 15 and 20%. Yeah, and this is wonderful. Those are track lines of all of the publicly available data globally, and it's actually a little misleading because those track lines, if you were able to zoom in, they would get narrower and narrower and narrower the closer you get to them. So it's not even as nice. Like, that's false, sadly. There's less data than there appears to be right here. So lots of work for the seafloor mapping community. There's a group called the Nippon Foundation, which is organizing the global seafloor mapping community under a program called Seabed 2030 to map the entire seabed by 2030 with modern systems. And so they're sponsoring data centers around the world to gather data from their regions, and organize that in a global map, which is a huge challenge because there's tons of sonars out there. There's tons of people mapping the seafloor. Not everybody wants to share their data. And there's lots of different ways you can process it. So it's a huge challenge. But yeah, Seabed 2030 is sponsored by the Nippon Foundation. It's a wonderful student sponsoring organization as well. They sponsor several students to come to UNH a year from around the world.
Awesome. Always looking for those student opportunities to flag for educators. And it's nice for us to provide educators with some examples of real world current things happening like Seabed 2030 for seafloor mapping. Thank you. I'd love to have another question, please. Alexandra asked, how do you measure how hard or soft a structure on the seafloor is using multi-beam?
Oh, great question. Yes. So the multi-beam not only provides depth, but it also provides amplitude. So we track how long the data takes to go out and come back, but also how strong the signal is when it returns. And so if sound goes out and bounces off a soft sediment, for example, mud, some of the strength of the sound will be absorbed by the mud. So although the sound does return, it is weaker when it returns. And then conversely, if the sound goes out and it hits something harder like rock or compacted sand or a coral reef, a kind of like a dense coral reef, more sound will bounce right back, and the signal strength will be stronger when it returns. And so the system is smart enough to collect that data, and we have another set of software that will actually process that into another kind of map that shows you in a nice grid that is the same area of the seafloor as the depth data. It's actually amplitude data, and you can infer, you can color code it. So you can say, okay, my brighter areas are harder substrate, and my darker areas that absorb sound are mud or whatever. And then you have to do some ground truthing usually to really say for sure, like, this is that. But once you say this section was coral and that section was mud, then you can say all the time for that area, that's always going to be coral, that's always going to be mud.
Okay. Great question, and thank you for that good answer, Mimi. Looks like our next question is from Blair. Who else uses these findings besides NOAA?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are a federal organization. We share all of our data rather quickly. We get our data into public archives 60 to 90 days from the end of each cruise in the hope that others will use our data. Others that have used our data are other federal agencies, so BOEM, the Bureau of Offshore Energy Management, USGS, the USGS, US Geological Survey, EPA has used our data, so other parts of the federal government, and then certainly industry pulls our data if we're exploring in a region that is of mineral interest or any kind of offshore energy interest. They will pull our data. Educators, we want you guys to use our data for sure. We try to put products in there that are usable with freeware so that there is no cost barrier to using our data. Other exploration organizations that, such as the one Susan mentioned earlier, so the Schmidt Ocean Institute or the Ocean Exploration OET group at URI uses our data. The concept is we don't always know what we've seen, so we want others to look at it, digest it, figure it out, use it for purposes that we haven't even thought of yet. And so our aim is always to get our data for ourselves for the ocean exploration purpose of our office, and then to share it for others to use as much as possible for the public good.
Great, yeah, and as Mimi said, all of this data is publicly accessible, and when we switch over to the activity demo in a few minutes, we're going to show you some ways that you can incorporate this data into your classroom. So we have another participant question. Keep them coming, we're having great ones, thank you. So Rahana asked, is there an adverse impact on marine life due to multi-beam sonar?
So this is a question we have asked of us a lot. We follow all of the permitting requirements the U.S. government requires for the Marine Mammal Protection Act, for the Endangered Species Act, for the National Environmental Protection Act. We go through the permitting process to prove annually that our sonars are not adversely impacting marine life. We have modeled the sound patterns of the sonars in the water, and then we know based on this the modeling how far the certain strength threshold that you cannot cross, like that you cannot allow a marine mammal to cross into if you're running your sonar. And so it's around 400 meters. So we know we monitor the water around us at all times for marine mammals. And so if a marine mammal crosses into that zone, we shut things down. So, and we're trained to do that, and we have the bridge doing that for us. And so we're super careful about that because we know that we're under a lens to do it right.
Great, yeah, a lot of procedures in place for everything, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Our next question from Fernando is, I noticed that in the Arctic Ocean area, there is not much mapping. Why is that?
That's a good question. The ice is prohibitive to mapping. The mapping that has occurred there occurs in a very small window of time when a Coast Guard cutter, a U.S. Coast Guard cutter, and there's been some international effort as well, goes in, breaks the ice ahead of the ship that actually has the sonar on it, so they work in tandem, and they kind of work through the Arctic very slowly, but they can't do the nice mowing the lawn pattern that I described that we do earlier because we have the whole open ocean. They can only follow the icebreaker in this really skinny line for a limited amount of time a year, and it's really just a couple ships that go up there and do it. That a lot of that data is collected by my colleagues at the University of New Hampshire, and getting on those cruises is a very coveted experience, I can tell you. I have not been.
I was going to ask if you had the opportunity to be on one of those.
No, I haven't. Other people on our team have, and it was the experience of a lifetime.
That's so cool.
Well,
I do have a few questions for you about student opportunities. So I know that you have done a lot of work with NOAA Ocean Exploration's Explorer in Training program. I'm wondering if you could tell our audience a little bit about this unique student opportunity.
Yes. So we host Explorers in Training on the Okeanos Explorer throughout the year on mapping cruises. Over the last 10 or 11 years, we've hosted, I think, in the neighborhood of 140 students, usually college or graduate students or recent graduates as well. We will bring offshore. And so we bring them offshore for typically one mapping cruise, so 2 to 3 weeks at a time. We fly them through to the ship, wherever the ship is. They get acquainted with operations on the ship. They are active participants in the cruise. They learn how to process the data into maps. We actually rely on them heavily. Like, they are doing real work. This is not just a fun experience to get on a boat. It's actually like, you could take this internship and probably get a job from it, we hope, if the person ends up liking it, of course. And so we teach them how to process the data into maps, and then we also teach them how to operate the sonar. So they stand an 8-hour watch on the ship with a trained professional, kind of learning from that trained professional in the operation of the sonar, and then turning the data into maps. And so, yeah, we have an application period annually. We usually get about 200 applicants a year for something like 10 to 12 spots. That was one of our great interns, Elizabeth Thompson. She was from actually American Samoa, and she came all the way to New Hampshire in the winter to do an internship with us here on shore. And then there's Brandon, who is a graduate student at UNH, who was her co-EIT. So they actually stood a watch onshore, and I trained them how to do the data processing on shore, and then their next experience was actually on the ship. So that's something we offer as well. Most of the interns are on the ship, but we do actually offer shore-based experience as well. Kind of, sometimes people can't sail for various reasons, professional, personal, medical, whatever. So we try to offer shore-based opportunities. And then sometimes they get to go on the ship as well, and they're already really well trained before they get there, which is great. And then the other thing we're doing, sort of dabbling in right now, which is really exciting, is teaching people how to work in the cloud. So we have our data processing software hooked up to the cloud right now. So we just completed our shakedown cruise off of North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, and we actually had 2 interns working in the cloud. One was in California, and the other one was in Portugal. And I was here in New Hampshire being their mentor, and that was quite an experience, managing time zones and technical questions and software crashes and stuff. But anyway, that's where we're going right now, but we're always going to have shipboard experiences because it's such a unique thing for people to get to do with us.
And also with, during the COVID pandemic as well, with not as many people being out at sea, having some opportunities to be involved from the shore has been increasing some access to that program as well, I'd imagine.
That's right. That's what drove the cloud EITs, actually, was to figure out how to still give internships during COVID.
Right. And so just so everybody knows, the link to our Explore and Training program is listed in the list of links we provide in the educator resource list. So you can find more information there. I think we have time to do one more participant question before we move into the activity demo. Could we get one more question? Great. Well, he said, when did seafloor mapping start? Like, when did it first become a tool that was used in the ocean exploration community?
Yeah. So, I mean, sonar was developed by the military, I believe it was in the 40s, to find submarines and mines. And then it was top secret for a long time. And then in the 60s, it became commercially available as a single beam sonar, so just one data point, one data point, one data point. And then multi-beam sonar was around longer. Multi-beam sonar was developed by the military, I think it was US military, in the 80s. And it became commercially available in the 90s, and that's when it really started to be able to be used by science, was in the early 90s. And those were the first systems my father actually sold, and some of them are around still, and people love to complain about them. And I'm like, my dad sold that. So I guess for science, since the early 90s.
That's interesting to
a lot of momentum since then.
And it's interesting to see the cross-industry application of that technology, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's developed so much with the backscatter data and the water column data that we're getting. So we actually study the water column through the multi-beam sonar and see if there's scatterers in there that are like plankton. We see bubbles in the water column. That's exciting. So yeah, the technology has really developed since then.
that's so cool.
Yeah,
Well,
there's some
thank you
bubbles.
so much, Mimi. It seems like seafloor mapping technologies are not only absolutely fascinating, but really critical to the work that we do. Would you be willing to stick around for another question or two at the end of the session if we have some time?
Sure, I can stick around. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks again, Mimi. It's great chatting with you.
Thank you so much. It was great.
So now we're going to shift to sharing some of the instructional resources that we have available to help cultivate student interest in these technologies. I'm going to turn it back to Susan now.
Thanks so much, Alex. What a great interview. My goodness. Mimi and I have worked together for probably 12 years, and it was so great to hear some of her history and what inspired her when she was young. What fun. And my goodness, so many questions. I think we have a lot of questions to answer in our follow-ups. Great. Thank you again, Alex.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah. Folks, as we noted earlier in the package of resources we shared with you, you'll find a huge long list of things. And Alex referenced the Explore and Training program, and that's at the end of that list. You're also going to find activities and modules. You'll find a section on information sheets. You're going to find a section on presentations and a long list of images and videos from inside our organization and videos from outside our organization that share the excitement of mapping the deep sea. So encouraging you to dig deeply into that resource list. So with that, I am going to share my screen and walk you through the multi-beam sonar activity. And I'm going to ask that you all be patient and bear with me because this is the first time I've shared multiple screens inside of this particular platform. And feel free to drop comments and questions into the chat box. We've got lots of people behind the scenes to answer those questions along the way and help you get to the right place. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I am first going to start you all with the watching in 3D activity. And I'm going to make sure that it's big enough so that you can see it. But this is the one I'm hoping that all of you have been able to either download and have on your screen or to have been able to print out. And this is a high school level activity which focuses on multi-beam sonar and how it's used to explore the seafloor. And if you take a look at the guiding questions that are about halfway down the first page, we're looking at the exploration of geography, why we're mapping the seafloor, the physical and technical aspects of the science, how we're mapping the seafloor, which you talked about a lot already, and the discoveries, the different exploration findings that we've had in relationship to mapping and what mapping has helped us to find. Down at the bottom of the first page, you'll see a couple of references to support for the next generation science standards. And on page 9 of this activity down near the end, which I'll show you a little bit later, we reference that in more detail and also reference the ocean literacy essential principles and fundamental concepts. So if we scroll down a little bit farther to page 2, this is a basic introduction to mapping and the strategies used by the 3 different ships of ocean exploration that we noted earlier, the Oceanus Explorer, the Falkor, and the Nautilus. And there are other ships that use similar technologies. Moving on to page 3, we start to get into the meat of this overview. And the pieces that are in here that are included in this full activity package are first a basic overview of multi-beam sonar, which is on the next page, page 4. specific case studies on a variety of multibeam sonar 3D images, and then guiding students through the exploration of those. Then we have a step-by-step usage guide for the Ocean Exploration Digital Atlas, which I'll take you to and show you some of the details associated with that. That is a searchable interactive expedition data map that has all of our expeditions and many of Ocean Exploration Trust expeditions back to over decades in the past. And then there is step-by-step usage for the Fledermaus software. And this is the software that Mimi noted earlier. This is the powerful interactive mapping visualization software that they use to create incredible maps of the seafloor. And this all gives the students a firsthand experience using the tools to explore multibeam sonar and the capabilities of 3D. And then number 4 in the activity is a specific, leading you to specific expedition website links for more information and resources. And then there are also resource links for further exploration. So the big point to get across in this is that there are 4 case studies, and those case studies focus on 4 different areas of the ocean. One is an underwater volcano called Kuala Barat in Indonesia, and one is exploring cold seeps off the northeast coast. One is exploring the northeast US seamount called Middleist Seamount, and that's the one we're going to explore a little deeper today. And the last case study is exploring a hotspot volcano called Vailulu'u, which is in the southeastern end of the American Samoa archipelago. So all of these activities include 3-dimensional multibeam sonar maps of each of those seafloor features. Moving a little bit farther down into this activity, again, I mentioned the overview of multibeam sonar on page 4. And you guys are all experts now, so we don't need to go through that. And if we move on to page 5, you'll see sort of a tutorial on how to use the digital atlas. And we used the Vailulu'u seamount from American Samoa as just the example here. So this walks you through the specifics of how to access the digital atlas. And we're going to go into this in more depth in just a few more minutes. And so there's 2 pages of exploring the atlas. And then the second tool is the Fledermaus software. And each activity, each case study, including this sort of overview tutorial, guides you through how to download the free Fledermaus software. And you'll see that again on page 7 with the Vailulu'u seamount as the example. And then at the bottom of page 8 is where we go into specific expeditions from our website and guiding you through what the findings were in relationship to that area that got mapped. And then on the last page, what we're doing with our newly developed activities is providing hot links to all of the links that are within the activity itself. So you kind of got one page, one-stop shopping to access all of the different pieces. And then again, as I mentioned, at the bottom of the last page, we have more specifics on some references to the next generation science standards and to the ocean literacy essential principles. So again, all of these case studies are linked on page 3. And I am going to now take you directly to the Middleist Seamount case study. And I'm going to make this large again, as large as I can. So this one is focuses on, first, what is a seamount? So there's some basic background information on what seamounts are. And in this particular instance, you're looking at a guyot, which is a seamount with a large flat summit. And so there's a little bit of background information about that. And then if we move on to page 2, you'll see that this exploration is connected directly to the Northeast US Seamount expedition from 2013. we were exploring the Northeast Seamount chain, which is a chain of extinct submarine volcanoes that extends east to west, west to east, that extends off the northeast coast of the U.S. And these seamounts are hotspots of biodiversity. And here you'll also see a few of the amazing organisms that we found when we were exploring that area with the remotely operated vehicle. So from here, you go into tool 1, which is the digital atlas. And I'm going to take you directly to the digital atlas and try and walk you through some of the specifics of that in case you might have been having any challenges following those directions or haven't had a chance to follow any of those directions yet. So within the atlas, again, you'll see hundreds of expeditions from all over the globe, all of the expeditions that we've experienced. So we have searches and layers over on the far left-hand side, and we are going to first search 2013. And if you're following along with the directions from the Middle-East Seamount, these directions are on page 3. So we're going to do 2013, and we're going to just type in Okeanos, because that was the ship for this exploration. And now you can see all of the expeditions that happened in 2013. And from there, which you can't see very well on my screen, but I suspect you can see on your own screen. You can see the list here on the right-hand side. The one that we are looking for is 1304L2. And what that means, this one, it means EX is the shorthand version of the Okeanos Explorer. 13 is the year of the expedition year. 04 is, it's the 4th expedition of that year. And L2 means leg 2 of that particular expedition. So I'm going to click on that, and you see this great tab pop up. And then I'm going to click on GIS Tools. And here you're following the directions that are on page 4. And once I click on GIS Tools, you can see that there are a number of boxes to be able to plot what we mapped. So I'm going to click on bathymetric mosaic, ship track, and dive locations and plot that on the map. That loads, and I move it over and I zoom in a little bit. And voila, you can see the seamount chain, and you can see where we were diving from an aerial perspective. And if I zoom in a little bit further, you can't see the words because we sort of mapped over the words, but this is Middle-East Seamount right here. And this is dive 4 and dive 5. Dive 4 being on the north side of Middle-East Seamount and dive 5 being on the south side. So this really gives the students a great aerial perspective of what we've mapped and actually what we haven't mapped. And you might remember Mimi mentioning a little earlier about mowing the lawn. These green lines are the tracks of the ship as it mapped the top of this particular seamount. So now we're going to move just a little bit further into the Fledermaus portion of this. And I'm going to make this screen bigger. And I know, again, some of you might have had some challenges downloading this software, and there are a few challenges associated with that, but we'll help work you through that as time progresses. I really love this activity and the fact that the students are using authentic software and able to manipulate these three-dimensional maps and look at them closer. So here I have pulled up the Fledermaus viewer software. Mine is 8.2. Yours should be 8.3. Anything 8.2 or higher from that download will work fine. And I have already downloaded the link that was provided to the Middle-East Seamount scene file. So I'm going to open that scene in my hard drive. So you can see it's already sitting in my hard drive in a particular place. And when I open it, boom, we have this gorgeous map of Middle-East Seamount. And you can see that you've got some selection tracks on the right-hand side in the box. So if you're looking at the map itself, these white lines are the dive tracks. The top one is the dive 4 on the north side, and dive 5 is on the south side, I believe. I'm going to erase one and make sure I'm right. Yes, dive 5 is on the south side. You'll also notice that the exaggeration is 3. 1 is reality, but you can exaggerate these to different sizes to look at more detail. So we exaggerated it to 3 to see the detail a little bit more. You also have the ability to zoom in close, and you have the ability to rotate and zoom in more. So you can really get a close look at different elements of this particular seamount to the level that multi-beam sonar mapping allows. And if I click on this second icon, it sends it back to its original location. You also might notice, and a cursor goes over these, there's a lot of changes happening right down here in the bottom right-hand corner. If my cursor is on the top of this guyot, down in the bottom left-hand corner, it's going to show you the latitude and the longitude and also the depth at that particular location. So you can determine the depth right here in the red zone, which is the shallower portion, or you can determine the depth down here in the purple zone, which is the deeper portion. So your students can do some deep analysis of what it is that they're looking at here in this particular map. And if you look at the bottom of page 6 in your activity, that's exactly what they're doing. They can take a deeper dive into specific questions. They can size the seamount, look for the deepest and shallowest points, and then they can start thinking about, well, what might be the reason this seamount is flat on top? Or why do you think the scientists picked these specific dive locations? And there are several other questions there suggested to get the students really thinking. So now I'm going to take us out of Fledermaus. And once you get a little farther into page 7 of the activity, we go into that next stage, which is the website itself. So this link here on page 7 takes you to the Northeast U.S. Canyon Expedition from 2013. And the directions guide you to go to dive 4 and dive 5. See if I can make this. There we go. The directions in the activity guide you to go to dive 4 and dive 5, which happens to be August 4th and August 5th in 2013. So they're guiding you to these daily updates that are in the top right-hand corner. So we're going to open the daily updates, and they are in chronological order. So I'm going to look at August 4th. And you can get a sense of what the amount of reading is for the students in that particular on that particular dive. And for dive 4, we were about 3,300 meters down on the north side of the seamount. And on that north side, there was a basalt floor, so a rock floor, with a lot of sponges and corals and many other invertebrates on a very hard substrate. And then if you move on to dive 5, there's another short description of what we found on that day. And we were about the same depth, but we were on the south side of the seamount in a very, in kind of a different environment. It was a sandier bottom. There were many more fish than there were on the north side. And there were still sponges and octocorals, a lot of different species of corals that were attached to the hard substrate where there was hard substrate. So if we go back to the activity itself, there we go. And I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom of that activity. You can see that there are more questions on the bottom of page 6 once they've done some of that exploration. And then on the bottom of page 7, once they've actually looked at the website, and read those daily logs, there are some specific questions that they can ponder, and then consider what else, if they were scientists and they were going back to that location, what might they want to know? So it really takes them beyond today and what we found and gets them thinking about, well, what might we look for in the future? And then lastly, on page 9, you have a number of different educator resources specifically. It guides you through a little bit more information about the digital atlas. And there is a Seamounts theme page on our website. There are 9, 10, 11 different theme pages on our website that provide you with a package of essays and lessons and images and videos, and you're going to learn more about those in a little while. And there is a really great background video on seamounts from Dr. Les Watling, who is from the University of Hawaii. He's amazing. It's a 45-minute video. It's great for an educator overview of what seamounts are and what's so special about them. Highly encourage you to take a look at that. And then also in this particular case, there's a description of what makes this area so special and the 2016 designation of it as part of the Northeast Canyon Seamount Marine National Monument. So a lot of our findings contributed to the fact that this became a monument. And then again, you can see all the hot links down at the bottom of the last page. So overall, these multiple case studies really give you an opportunity to expose your students to not only the authentic research and the exploration data, but also to the specific tool that the hydrographers actually use in their everyday mapping of the seafloor. So we'd like to encourage you to think about how you might use this activity, how you might break it up into pieces for some online instruction or a hybrid class. And think about that and bring some of those thoughts to your follow-up events. And again, I know some of you have had some challenges with the software, so we're happy to help you with that between now and your follow-up events or during your follow-up events, whatever works. And again, I just want to note to you that there are multiple case studies in this package, including the volcano in Indonesia, the hotspot in American Samoa, and the methane seeps off the southeast coast of the US, all with really fascinating discoveries. And we hope to add more to this package as all of our discoveries progress in the years to come. So with that, I am going to turn it over to my colleague Liz Hoadley to share some of the resources in more specifics.
Hi everyone, and thanks Susan. So as she mentioned, I'm Liz. I'm part of the education team here at NOAA Ocean Exploration. And what I'm going to do tonight is walk us through some of the awesome online resources that are available to you about seafloor mapping that you can hopefully use to help bring ocean exploration alive in your classroom. And these will be resources that are featured on our website, like you see here, which is the NOAA Ocean Exploration website. And I'll also hop over and check out some great resources from our friends and colleagues at Ocean Exploration Trust and Schmidt Ocean Institute. And so starting with our website, we have a number of seafloor mapping opportunities available, or resources. And as Susan mentioned, one of the first places to check out is our education page. And under that, if you head to themes, this is our main education page. And from that, if you go to explore by theme, you'll see we have a number of themes already highlighted for several of the major topics related to ocean exploration. And we're really excited because seafloor mapping is our newest addition to this page. So if you've been here before, you might not recognize this one. Within each theme, we have essays and lessons and multimedia that have been identified. And so this is a great place to find that activity package that I know some of you have been having difficulty accessing tonight. As well as some additional lessons that you can include in your classroom. All are here available in PDF format and also are sorted by grade level. And then from the other tabs within this theme, you can check out some great images and videos that are available that really help highlight this topic. as well as expeditions and career connections. And the career connection for this page actually will take you to that Explorer in Training that I know some of you were asking about. Another place within the education website, so if you go back to our education homepage, is our NOAA Ship Okeanos Explorer Education Materials Collection. And so if you've attended one of our in-person professional developments in the past, these resources you might recognize. So we have the older books, which are the Why Do We Explore and How Do We Explore, which have collections of PDFs, including some activities on seafloor mapping. And then our most recent professional development offering uses the Exploring the Deep Ocean collection. And so within that, again, we've got some resources organized by topic. And tonight's activity, the Watching in 3D activity package, is also featured here. Other sections of the website that would be really helpful within a classroom setting are under our multimedia page. You've got image galleries and video playlists, and here we've got images and videos that are curated by topic. So within the image galleries, if you select multi-beam bathymetry, we've got some great resources that you can also filter by geographic area, which is really, really helpful if you're looking to make some local connections to your students. The video page is under this multimedia section, so video playlists is also another great spot. Most of our videos are only 2 to 5 minutes, so perfect for the classroom. And the mapping videos are available under the technology section. The last section of our website I want to point out is under expeditions. So this is how you can access both our current expeditions, which are featured at the top, as well as explore past expeditions. And so Susan has those 4 great case studies, or went over those, which are from past expeditions, but you can also explore by topic and find several others related to seafloor mapping. And you'll see we do a lot of mapping in our office, so it's a great way to find out what we've been doing in recent years and also connect to current expeditions. If I hop over to the Nautilus Live website, which is our website, or the website that is hosted by Ocean Exploration Trust, they have some great education resources as well. So starting with their education tab, you can see education resources is featured right at the top. And if you head to that page, there's a couple ways you can sort if you're looking for activities for your classroom. So you can search by theme, and they do theirs a little more broadly using the STEAM acronym and also offer some career activities. You can look by resource type, or if you really want to just narrow down to seafloor mapping, if you head to the search feature at the bottom of the page, theirs are located under the acoustic survey tab. And so if you search by that, you see they have a number of resources available for classroom activities in a variety of different lengths. And so that's the blue text there is the format. Also, they have some great multimedia content as well, which is available under the gallery section of their website. And again, here you can filter by topic. And seafloor mapping is located under technology. And so it's a great, and you can also filter if you're looking for blogs or photo albums or video content, just a quick and easy way to access. And there's also displays from most recent expeditions to oldest. So you know right at the top is going to be some really current content on seafloor mapping. And then last but not least is Schmidt Ocean Institute. So they again have some awesome seafloor mapping resources. Their education resources are available under their education tab. If you head down to RV Falcor inspired lesson plans, here's their collection of lesson plans, and they have 2 that relate perfectly to seafloor mapping, the contours lesson plan, and then pings. And pings is actually looking at that timing to try to figure out the distance and how that relates to mapping. So some pretty cool activities there. And then if you're looking just for some great background content for your student, under their technology tab, there's also some great information on seafloor mapping. And this page is really nice because it includes some kind of FAQs, so some frequently asked questions about mapping and some pictures to go along with it. And so I think this is a nice digestible amount of information for students as well. Before I pass it back, the last thing I really want to point out is all three of these organizations, so our office, NOAA Ocean Exploration, Ocean Exploration Trust, and Schmidt Ocean Institute, are actually all in the middle of their expedition season. Our Ocean Exploration Trust is just about to start. And so if you're looking for expeditions, one thing that's really exciting about that is all three organizations live stream their ROV cruises. And so those videos are available on all three websites, some on the homepage, some specifically on the expeditions page. We have links provided to those on that resource document that Alexander shared in the Google folder and earlier tonight. So keep an eye out for that. Some upcoming, right now we're actually at sea doing our technology demo. So hopefully maybe you tuned in and caught our live event that was hosted 2 weeks ago as an introduction. But we're out testing some really cool technology, including some awesome mapping technology. Our office also has 2 expeditions that you can tune into a little bit later this summer. So from June 30th to July 29th, we are planning an expedition called the North Atlantic Stepping Stones. And for this expedition, we will be in the New England and cornerized seamounts. And check out the live stream footage for from our ROV during that time. And then we're also planning to continue some Blake Plateau mapping efforts. So stay tuned for some more very current data on the mapping data on the Blake Plateau. And with that, again, a lot of these links that I just went over, this is just a tour of the sites. These are all provided and easily accessible from that educator resource document that Alexander shared. And if you have any questions or accessibility issues, we will work with you to make sure that you get access to that. So I'm going to turn it back over to Alex to wrap up our show.
Thanks, Liz. So many resources, so little time, but it's so great to see how to best navigate all the sites to find them. Thank you.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'd like to bring Mimi back up on stage to ask one final question. Thanks for sticking around, Mimi. My question for you is, what does the future of ocean exploration look like to you? Can you hear me? Maybe not. Well,
I think maybe I'm having some connectivity issues.
Okay, we hear you a bit now.
Okay. It's been happening intermittently today. So I heard the question, what does the future of ocean exploration look to me?
Yes.
I see, and this is my slice of the pie, because ocean exploration is huge, with things like eDNA and many other things that are in development. But my slice of the pie, I see it as the future is autonomy. If we really expect to map the seafloor by 2030, the global seafloor by 2030, and we still have 80% left to go, we need to put many, many little mapping ships out there that maybe don't necessarily have people on them in order to get it all done. So there's a lot of work being done to create systems that can operate by themselves or with very little instruction from people who are based on shore communicating with those systems via satellite technology. Yeah, it's a force multiplier. If you can have one person kind of controlling 5 platforms at once, making lots of data, making lots of seafloor coverage rather than one ship with 10 people on it doing that work, that's where I see my arena of seafloor mapping going.
So interesting. Yeah. The future is autonomy. Uncrewed systems.
Right.
Great. So cool. Thank you so much. Well, as everybody knows, our team is going to be hosting different follow-up events at our different alliance partner sites. If we could pull up the slide of some different, all the different follow-up times and dates. You all don't. Oops, sorry, I cut out. There we go. Our sites will be contacting you directly for these, so you don't need to memorize them, but just so everybody could see if you were still wondering when your date and time is. You can see that here. During this time, you'll be able to have deeper conversations about how you could use all of the material that we shared with you today in your current circumstances. If there were any burning questions we didn't get to today, I know that there were several of them, please feel free to email them to us at oceanexeducation@noaa.gov, oceanexeducation@noaa.gov, and we'll do our best to try and get you an answer. Thank you all so much, especially to our guest Mimi for participating today. Mimi, if you're still here, we just would love to bring you back up and say thank you so much again. If you had any final words for the audience.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be here today. I love sharing this information and technology with people in the hopes that the field of seafloor mapping grows and people see it as a thing that anybody can do if they're interested in it. There's many ways to get into it. So please encourage your students to do it. And it was great to be here. And you guys had wonderful questions. So thank you. And sorry about my kids.
Thank you so much, Mimi, and also thank you to our partners at the Inner Space Center, the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, and all of our NOAA Ocean Exploration staff behind the scenes. Please keep an eye out for more opportunities in the future. We'll be offering our next round of PD mini-series later this year in the fall. And also over the summer, we'll be doing a few reruns of the PDs we've offered so far, which are on underwater robots, hydrothermal vents, and seafloor mapping. So stay tuned for more opportunities to get involved. And thank you all so much for tuning in tonight, and hope you have a great night. Thanks.